Progress.
I'm Gautam Mukunda. Tonight on Greater Boston, the state is working to open up new temporary housing for migrants coming in as the government calls on Congress to act fast. But why exactly is this problem so hard to solve? Then, a preview of GBH's new podcast, What is Owed, that dives into the notion of reparations and the debate playing out here in Boston. And finally, two musicians on tour across the U.S. with the National Symphony of Ukraine. Migrants are coming into Massachusetts faster than we can find them places to stay. And while the state has set up short-term sites to expand the state's shelter capacity, including one part-time shelter at a former courthouse in Cambridge that closes during the day, hundreds of families are on their own as they wait for beds to open up. Governor Maura Healey is calling on Congress for help, urging lawmakers to pass immigration reforms and put more federal funding towards the crisis. But why exactly is this problem so hard for Massachusetts to solve in the first place? I'm joined now by Iván Espinoza Madrigal, Executive Director of Lawyers for Civil Rights, and Dr. Geralde Gabeau, Founder and Executive Director of the Immigrant Family Services Institute. Iván, Geralde, thank you so much for joining us today. Let me just, start with a restatement of that question. The numbers we're talking about here, right? For Boston, we're talking about just under 1,300 families. For Lowell, it's 208, and Lynn, it's 287. For Springfield, it's 283. These are a lot of people, but in the context of cities, in the case of Boston, of over 600,000, this is actually not a huge number of people. So what is making this so hard for our cities and our state to absorb?
I think the starting point here is that this is a shared responsibility. We all have a responsibility to support the migrants that are arriving into our country. Many of the migrants are fleeing horrible and harrowing experiences of violence. We also have many families that are being transported by southern states like Texas and Florida into northern cities. And in Boston, where we have had a major influx of families, it is critical for us to count on a holistic and comprehensive network of support from government to the public and private sector to concerned people who can even donate coats or canned food. All of this is critical to be able to come together to solve the migrant crisis that we are experiencing. And as a shared responsibility, some of the numbers that you are putting on the screen are concerning to us because it indicates that not all of our communities are being equally resourceful and responsive in light of this humanitarian crisis.
So I actually do think that's worth discussing as well, because if Boston is getting 1,299 families, which I would estimate means a little under 5,000 people. I don't think we know exactly what that number is, but in that ballpark, a little under 5,000 people. We have other towns in the area that are smaller than Boston, but Brookline, that has absorbed 32 families, Norton 22, Milton 2, and Newton the astonishing number of 0. So I would say, what's going on here? So if 5,000 people, roughly, is a lot for Boston, it's still 5,000 in a city of 650,000 people. That's about the size of a medium-sized convention, I think. So if that's hard for us, why is it, well, it's not impossible. What's going on that Newton has 0?
That's a good question, and one that we always say that we are currently facing a humanitarian crisis. So I try to stay away from the word migrant crisis, because basically when you look at it, the migrants did not really create a crisis. We already had kind of, a contextual framework where there were so many issues already, in existence. And then by the time that they arrive, so it feels that they are the one creating the crisis when in fact they are not. So this is so important for us to mention. And also, as we are thinking about this humanitarian crisis, we are also calling on every single city and town to really step up and help. Because had they have done I mean, if everyone were to say, you know what, yes, I want to play a role, as Iván said, this is a shared responsibility. We all are called to play a role. So if every town and city they were like to really play their role fully, we will not even talk about a crisis, because all of those families would have found enough place, you know, to stay, to live, and to be integrated into their communities. So, I mean, I think it's a call to action. Maybe some of the towns probably they are still not understanding what's going on, and we probably need to educate them more so that they can get involved more. So I think it's the time for all town cities and, you know, to come up and say, yes, I want to help, because this is not a real crisis when we look at it.
So I want to keep pushing on this a little bit. If we're trying to, so because this is not going to be a one-time thing. If we look at what's happening in Latin America, if we look at the expectations for what's going to happen with climate change in societies to our south, like, we are going to keep getting large numbers of people. So we better figure out what we're going to do about it. And it strikes me that I have not seen a plan that lays out what we're going to do about that at all, or how we're going to share that burden across the state as a whole. So I'm going to focus in again on the cities. Newton we had at 0, Milton at 2. Wellesley wasn't on our graphic, but Wellesley, I believe, is also at 0. What is stopping these towns, which are wealthy and extraordinarily well-resourced places in Massachusetts, that, judging by the voter rolls, are filled with good liberals who are strongly pro-immigration, what is stopping these towns from taking families in?
I think there are a couple of things to unpack here. One of them is, and I'll do some pushback here, I don't think migration will always be at a high number. Migration ebbs and flows based on a wide range of different factors. And so right now we are seeing a spike. That's undisputable. We see the numbers across the country, but that spike can also easily go away. And so it's important for us to be smart and strategic about how we plan around this, which requires a coordination of resources. It requires a coordination of federal, state, and local resources, leveraging public and private partnerships so that the government doesn't go at it alone. But federal oversight is incredibly important here. The federal government controls immigration. And so it's up to the feds to be able to provide things like an employment authorization card that activates an immigrant economically so that they can go into the many job opportunities that remain available in the service industry, for example. And so we need to think strategically about this. And right now, the framing is this is going to be a cascade of immigrants constantly coming. I'm not so sure about that. And at the same time, we also can't label them a drain in our system or as undesirable, particularly in the affluent suburbs that have not received many migrants, because it is important for us to see them as an economic opportunity for our Commonwealth. And so we need to invest in the migrants as well. And so this is an effort that needs more strategy, more coordination at every level, and that needs very much a better system to house and integrate them into the community along the lines of the integration points that Dr. Gabeau was just mentioning.
So obviously Massachusetts has a housing crisis. And one of the big constraints that's making this harder is that we just don't have enough space even for the people who are already here. And you know, anyone who's tried to rent a home to rent an apartment in Boston recently has experienced this. Anyone who's tried to buy a place in Boston recently has experienced this. And you know, another 5,000 people certainly isn't helping that problem. But it could be made easy, right? Easier by the sort of reforms that you're talking about, both in terms of building new housing, but also just sort of spreading it out across the state, and certainly into Western Massachusetts, where rents and rent costs are not as high. So, what does the state government, which legally has control over land use in the state, right? Like it may have ceded that power to the state, to towns, but it can take it back at any time. What does the state government need to do to both aid with, you know, the work process, with the work that you're describing, but also just to make sure that towns and communities step up and take in people who are in desperate need at this moment in time?
I mean, just to their credit, I have to say that, you know, when it comes to the work authorization, you remember 2 months ago or maybe 3 months ago, the state has organized a large clinic, with USCIS and other departments as a way to really increase the opportunity for the new families. And again, I call them the newly arrived families because once they are here, we don't consider them as migrant anymore because they are not migrating to any other place. So they are here. So we consider them the newly arrived families. So as a way to really help them access work authorization. So right now, I think what we need is to see all of the employers coming alongside to really quickly, ease the process to hire as many of them as possible. And we need to continue to push on the federal government so that they can expedite more of the work authorization. So 2 months ago, they did, expedite the work permit that they did. But after that, we feel that everything is coming to kind of, like a very slow process. So we need to continue to push for the federal government to help us with the work permit. But also, I know that, at the state level, there has been a lot of conversation around identifying building, identifying lands, everything that they could possibly identify as a way to make them available. But as you always also know, there is also the politics, right? Who wants what and how do they want that and so on and so forth. So I think that those are challenges I think that we are facing, and we need to find a way to go around them and to make sure that we have enough space for the families to come.
Iván Espinoza Madrigal, Dr. Geralde Gabeau, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Next up, Boston, like many cities around the United States, has begun to wrestle with the notion of paying reparations to black people to make up for 400 years of enslavement and economic exclusion. But in Boston, the debate is compounded by the city's complicated history. A new GBH News podcast sets out to unpack the history, tensions, precedents, and the current movement that surround reparations. Host and GBH News political reporter Soraya Wintersmith brings us this preview and the story of a remarkable woman named Belinda Sutton.
This is how a formerly enslaved woman became the first person in Massachusetts to fight for reparations and win. Almost. Belinda Sutton lived here at the Royal House, in what is now the city of Medford, just outside Boston. 200 years ago, this was a sprawling plantation. She was among the dozens of enslaved people who labored here.
50 years, her faithful hands have been compelled to ignoble servitude for the benefit of an Isaac Royal, until the terror of men armed in the cause of freedom compelled her master to fly. I mean, what an amazing passage, right?
Historian Kiara Singleton showed me the original petition Belinda Sutton filed.
It's quite amazing. I mean, we do not have many documents like this from Black women in the 18th century.
Belinda Sutton filed the petition after becoming emancipated from her enslaver's estate in 1783.
She starts with talking about where she grew up, which we have come to understand that that's modern Ghana. Belinda Sutton is making it very clear that not only does she have a homeland, but she had a family, and slavery was the reason why she was taken away from both her home and her family. So what we can think about is that she is a part of this active, rich Black abolitionist and radical Black community who are at the front lines of not only demanding for their freedom, but also demanding for the freedom of all Black people in the state of Massachusetts.
What can you tell me about the process Belinda went through to petition?
What we do know is that Belinda Sutton is illiterate, and we know that because she signs her petition with an X. She would have dictated her story, and then she would have filed it with the Massachusetts legislature. And the court says, we agree with you. We do think you deserve to be compensated.
But Singleton believes the legislature only approved Belinda Sutton's petition for reparations to punish the royal family for picking the wrong side in the Revolutionary War.
I want to be very clear that that legislature is not saying, yes, we are actively and willingly wanting to give money to this 70-year-old Black woman just out of the kindness of their heart. What they're doing is saying, there's a new government in town, and the royals were loyalists. She was enslaved by one of the wealthiest enslavers in all of New England. And so it really is a way for them to try to punish people like the royals. So the legislature gives her an annual settlement of 15 pounds and 12 shillings, which is supposed to help her survive and take care of a daughter who is sick. She gets that payment only twice. while it is important that she wins that judgment, it's even more important that she doesn't get all of that money and that she keeps fighting back for that money because she needs it, but also because she's owed it. But what it does, it shows us the ways in which Black people are putting pressure on, the government, on elected officials to actually live up to the promises of freedom.
Particularly because when we think about New England and the height of the transatlantic slave trade, people are talking about the abolitionist movement. That means that there's a lot of white help and white advocacy. But Belinda, I think, is a testament to Black people doing their own thing.
Yeah, Black people have always been their own abolitionists. And generally we've told the story of abolitionists through white judges and lawyers and activists, but Black people have always been at the center of that movement as well. So when we say that this document helps us understand reparations, I think it really does do the work that so many people are grappling with today. How does, in Belinda's case, slavery, but then today, a long history of structural racism and inequality prevent Black people from being able to determine their own lives and livelihood?
Belinda Sutton's cause lives on, and in 2024, there are many different questions about reparations. I did a whole podcast about it.
The first episode of What is Owed is out now. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. Finally tonight, the National Symphony of Ukraine is touring the US, and two of the musicians performing with the symphony stopped by Fraser Studio here at GBH for a special performance on Boston Public Radio. We'd like to share that performance and some of their conversation with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan.
Pianist Volodymyr Vinitsky and cellist Natalia Koma, who immigrated to the U.S. after the fall of the Soviet Union. And as a coincidence, I guess it's not, they happen to be a couple, I should say. I think that matters for us to know. We are honored to have you both here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. So let's start with you, Natalia. What does it mean to you to be performing with the orchestra from Ukraine?
It's very meaningful for me because the orchestra became like family to us. We performed the tour in 2020, and we traveled together. For example, I can tell that when we met today in the hotel, we were hugging each other, and we were so happy to see each other. So it's, I think, also very important right now in this time to have this tour in the United States and to with the National Symphony of Ukraine to present beautiful music and to share our passion for music and to perform.
You know, Volodymyr, I'm so glad to hear Natalia say what she said at the end, because at least from my perspective as an outsider, you're not just playing incredibly beautiful music, you are representing your country. Is that some sort, do you feel a burden from that? What does that feel like for you?
I think it's very natural to represent country. We represent both countries now, and United States and Ukraine also. When we came here, we represented just Ukraine, and now we became the American citizen, and we represent two countries, and as much we can, we work for a relationship between our countries. And every year before war start, we visiting Ukraine for months. We give it master classes. We teach the young generation. We played with local people. We promote even American music. We brought some composers from United States, and we played a double concerto written for us with Natalia in Lviv Philharmonic, in Kiev Philharmonic also. And
but you're ambassadors, not just artists this time.
Yes, we are ambassadors. We try to help how we can help our country where we were born, because, you know, this is situation, that's why.
Well, it's almost, I think, embarrassing for me, and I'm sure for millions of Americans, what is happening now in our Congress regarding help for Ukraine. I mean, we've all seen what has happened to your country. So when you talk about that with the members of the orchestra or other people, particularly being in the United States now, where lots of us think we've let your country down, what do people say?
Natalia?
The hope is very important. I think people in Ukraine, and we as well, we hope that the help will come, and everything, what we hope and every day. You probably understand what we hope. That Ukraine will become free, and our people will be liberated who are under now occupation, and our beautiful country democratic country will evolve to become.
It's hard for you to talk about, isn't it? It's hard.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Well, tell us, please.
Because we love our country so much, and we know how big the history of this, and we hear so many lies coming from the other parts, total lies about the history of our country, and
from Putin, we're talking about,
yes.
Putin's people, of course.
Yeah.
We just try to deliver the real history, how it was.
It was an honor to meet you both, and it is really an honor to hear you play. So you may take your headphones off, gently put them down. You can go to your cello, you can go to your piano. Wartime Tango coming in a couple of seconds.
You can see the full interview and learn more about how these musicians are experiencing the war in Ukraine by going to youtube.com/GBH News. That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics. Adam Riley will talk to Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss about the war in Gaza, Russia's war on Ukraine 2 years in, and the foreign aid bill making its way through the House with funding aimed at both conflicts. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. I'm Gautam Mukunda, and good night.
Ali